enjoy the session, and without further delay, I'd like to hand our things over to our featured presenter, recruiting and corporate hiring consultant, Gary O'Neill. Gary, you now have the floor.
Thank you, Mayan. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Leveraging LinkedIn. My name is Gary O'Neill. Before we jump in, I thought I'd give you just a little bit of background on me so you kind of know the perspective that I come from. For about the last 20 years, I've run recruiting teams. I've been a recruiting consultant and a hiring consultant inside of at least 450 different companies that range from Microsoft and Dell and the very large companies all the way down to startups and just about every industry. I've been witness to, probably at least somewhat witness to, probably 50,000 interviews at this point in time and about 15,000 hires. So I'm here to share with you today as much as I possibly can about how to take advantage of this tool called LinkedIn and how to make the most of it with respect to your career, with respect to your job search, with respect to all things that LinkedIn can do for you in and around your career and around jobs. And the perspective that I'm going to take is a couple. One is I'm certainly going to represent the perspective of a recruiter and a hiring manager and how we go about using LinkedIn, so that the notion is that if you understand how the game is played, it's a whole lot easier to win. And I'll kind of take you behind the scenes of how this tool is used. And then what we're also going to do is there's a flip side to LinkedIn, which is how can you best use LinkedIn to run an effective job search? What can you do besides just having a profile out there and searching for jobs? So we're going to talk about those two sides of the coin. So, without further ado, let's get after it. I'm going to move this out of the way. So one of the first things I do want to talk about this is this, what is it that all people who get hired have in common? And I've thought about this a lot, and if you've been in some of my sessions, this is a common theme for me, because the notion is that if we knew what everyone who lands a new job has in common or does in common, we should have that, do that, right? We should emulate that. And I've thought about it a lot, and over the years, people talk about having a great resume or conducting a great interview or having a network or knowing people, and all those things are really, really helpful. But I can give you examples of people who get hired who've never had a resume. I can give you examples of people who get hired who have had a horrible interview, who have no network, every example. And the only exception to that I can't find any exception for is this, that they get to the front of the line. I can find zero examples. And what I mean by get to the front of the line is that everyone that I know of who got hired for any job at any level, I don't anywhere from CEO to, first job in high school, they met with, talked to, and interacted with the hiring manager, which is essentially the front of the line. Now, it might seem silly to some of you, but there's no title hiring manager. We're talking about there's always generally one person, sometimes a couple of people, but there's someone who is responsible for making the decision as to whether or not you get brought on board the team or whether you're given an offer or not. And that's the person who we're talking about, is that decision maker is who we're referring to as the hiring manager. So the only thing that I know that everyone has in common is they get to the front of the line. So even with regard to LinkedIn, we're going to talk about how to create a profile that's not only easy to find, but one that when a recruiter or a hiring manager or someone in HR, whoever it is running a search for people like you, that you come up at the top of the list. Yeah, so we're going to kind of start there. Let me see, what else we got right here? All right, that's all I wanted to show you on this particular one. So we're going to jump straight into it. And what I want to do is I'm going to bring up my here's my LinkedIn account. And what you'll notice is that unless you've ever paid for a Sales Navigator account, which is what this it's called, you might not recognize this particular interface. So this is one of the upgraded interfaces that you can get. It's a basic upgraded account that a lot of recruiters and sales professionals use. And so I want to show you a little bit about how we as professionals who do this for a living and HR professionals. Let me just say this, I know a lot of recruiters and a lot of recruiting managers and a lot of people in HR, and I work with a lot of different companies. And what I'm about to show you is probably the most common way that those of us who make our living, because we help organizations with their hiring, this is how we use LinkedIn. And my notion is that if you can see and understand what happens on the back end, then a lot of the suggestions that I'm going to make to you as we move forward will make a whole lot more sense. So a very real situation. I was just in a client's office an hour ago, and one of the things that she's finally, this is the head of HR, finally got approval to hire someone into payroll. So I haven't run this search, right? They're going to show you live exactly how we go do this. So yeah, so here's what I'm going to do. So this is my LinkedIn account. Mayan, you can see this, right? You see my LinkedIn account? Yeah?
Yes, see it.
Okay. Okay, good. I just want to make sure that it was live and working. So what I'm going to do right here is I'm going to drop this down and I'm going to go into an advanced search, and I'm going to search for leads, which essentially is search for people. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go straight to this field. So this is by far the most common style of search that anyone who uses, that's involved in hiring very much, who uses LinkedIn, this is exactly the style of search that almost everyone uses. So I'm going to go straight to this title field, and I'm going to put in payroll, because the person who we want to hire probably has the word payroll in the title of a position in LinkedIn. And by the way, let me show you what I mean by position. I'm going to open up a new window or new tab here with LinkedIn in it, and I'm going to go to my profile. 1 second. Here it comes. It's thinking. It's thinking. I wish it would think faster. There we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to, come on. I'm going to go to my profile, is where we're trying to go. Here we go. So yeah, so there's me. And what you'll notice is that when I go down, scroll down a little bit under the experience section, right? There are multiple positions is what LinkedIn calls these positions. And then each one of them has a title. So this is the title field in my current position, and this is the title field in my previous position, and my title field in my previous position. Now this one that says April 2018 through present, anytime it says something through present, that is my current. That's my current position, and you can have multiple current positions. So I'm going to go back to this other screen. The reason why I wanted to show you that is that you'll notice here under the title field, right here, I have this choice, and this is an upgraded account, but most of us who do this professionally have one. I can choose whether I want the word, what this says is search for people who have the word payroll in the title field of any current position that they have. And the reason why we flip that to current isn't because we care whether somebody's employed or not. The reason why we flip it to current is that otherwise I'll find people who did payroll 20 years ago and haven't done payroll in 20 years, and those people are of no help to me. So just know that when we're searching for you, we're typically going straight to this title field, and this is going to be set to current, and we're searching your current positions. So one of the takeaways is going to be you must have a current position on your LinkedIn profile. That doesn't mean you have a job. That means you have one of these positions that's marked as a current position. And I'll show you how to do that in just a bit. I'm just showing you how we use the tool first of all. So we're going to put in payroll in the title field. And what you'll notice is right up here in the upper right-hand side, in my network, there are 306,404 people who have the word payroll in their current title, right? I don't need that. So the next thing I'm going to do is go right here to geography, and I'm going to put in a postal code, and I'm going to put in the postal code of the client. 78746 is where they're at, and I'm going to start with within 10 miles of 78746. There we go. I got 492, right? So 492 people in LinkedIn whose profile has their current position has the word payroll in the title field, and they have their zip code, and I'll show you how to change this. They have their zip code as within 10 miles of 78746, and essentially what it's looking at is the post offices, right? It's looking at the distance between post offices, and yeah. Now the reason why I want 78746 is that is the client's postal code. And what we know is the likelihood of somebody being interested in an opportunity and the likelihood of turnover in the long run is directly proportional to how far it is to their office. So, but let me show you this. If I were to, come on. If I didn't get 492 is more than I want. It's more than I want. I don't have the time to go mess with almost 500 people. If I hadn't gotten that, if it was like 5, what I would have done is I would have pushed it out to 25 miles. Let's see what happens if we push it out to 25 miles. I got 957. So see, what we're gonna do is I'm gonna like tile this in, because what I really want is somewhere between 50 and 100 people is what I want in my set. So I'm gonna narrow this down within 10 miles. The moral in this particular story is that your location and your zip code is commonly used by people who are trying to search for you on LinkedIn. I'll show you how to set your zip code. The natural question is going to be, can I have more than one? The answer is no, you can only have more than one. Well, what if I want to relocate? Yeah, it's going to be a little bit of a problem, but this is the way that it works. And I'm going to show you all kind of tricks and techniques that you can use to kind of get ahead of this, right? Kind of hack the system a little bit. We're just starting with this, but 492, I don't need 492, I don't have time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move over here to this keywords field. And one of the things that Valerie is the hiring manager's name. One of the things that Valerie told me is that she really wants somebody with multi-state payroll experience and someone who has payroll certifications, right? So it's like, okay, I'm going to put in certified, right? And there we go. I got 54. Ding, 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 ding. I haven't run this search. We're doing this live. This is how a recruiter works, right? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click search. And I just brought up, here we go. There we go, 54 results. Now let me show you exactly what we do. And again, I know a lot of recruiters, and this is the way that we pretty much all operate. Now, what I think a lot of you probably are expecting that I would do is that I would go look at Jessica Riley's profile, and I would look at Elaine Smith's profile, and I would look at Kim Scott's profile, right? But that's not really what's going to happen. And here's the reason why, is because I've got 54 people in this set. I would like to touch base with these 54 people, but what I know is the majority of them are going to be non-responsive to me. If I'm lucky, if I send a message out to these 54 people, if I'm lucky, 7 or 8 of them, maybe 10 will respond to me. And then it's those 7 or 8 or 10, those ones who respond, that I'm going to go look at their profile, because otherwise I could easily spend 2 hours looking at these people's profile, picking out the people who I think would be quote unquote best, only to find out that they're non-responsive to me. So what we do in general as recruiters is this. I'm going to show you first. I'm going to right click and say open in a new tab, right? I'm going to right click and open in a new tab. But what I really do is I hold down the control key, because if you control click, it automatically, that's the same thing. It's open and seeing in a new tab. Control click, I'm going to open a new tab. And what I do is I'd go through this whole first page and I would open all of these professionals in a new tab. Because here's what I know. They all have the word payroll in the title field of their current position. They're all list their zip code as within 10 miles of 78746 where my client is, and they all have the word certified somewhere in their profile, right? So there's a really good chance that the people I'm reaching out to either are or know the person who it is that we're going to end up hiring. So what I'll do in this particular case, the short circuit of it is this: I will click connect right here. So this is the same thing as you could do connecting with somebody. I will bring this up and I'm going to say, hello, THY. It's always great to be connected with payroll professionals in Austin. Let's connect. Gary. A couple of things to notice here. One is that I don't spread this all out into multiple lines, because when the receiver of this gets it, they only see the first 2 lines of my message. So if you make it long, they're not really going to see it. They have to open it up, and most people aren't going to do that. In general, I don't expect that Thai is going to, or Thee, or however I pronounce her name, I don't expect that she is really going to read my message anyway, but just in case, the likelihood that she'll connect with me goes up if I do that. The other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to put this into my copy buffer, right? I'm going to copy that and I'm going to send that invitation. And then I'm going to close her record. Actually, what I really would have done is I would have downloaded her profile, would have put it into our applicant tracking system so that I know I sent that message out to her. But in the interest of time, I'm just going to show you what I would, what I really do. So now I've got Scott, Kim Scott, and I'll show you real quick. What I would do is I would click save on Scott's profile, and come on. It runs a little slower when I've got all the webinar stuff open. But I can essentially build a list, build a pile of payroll professionals inside of LinkedIn. But what I'm going to do is I'll hit connect, and I'm going to paste that message. I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to select it all again, Control A. I'm going to put that in my copy buffer, and I'm going to say, hello, Kim. And I'm going to click send, and I'm going to send that invitation, and then I'm going to close Kim, and then I'm going to go to this next one. Come on, here it goes. Right, ready, Elaine, there we go. Come on, Elaine. All right, and I'm going to click those dots. All right, really, we're good. We want to see already. Come on. Oh my goodness. Connect. Yay. And then I'm going to paste, and then I'm going to click right there. I'm going to say Elaine, and I'm going to send that invitation. So what I'm going to do, and then I'm going to close Elaine, and there's 20 people per page. So what I'm going to do is I would send, in a matter of about 15-20 minutes, I could identify, in this particular case, 54 people. I'm going to send connection requests to all 54 people, and I'm going to get that whole exercise done in maybe 15 minutes, right? Maybe 15 minutes. And then I'm going to move on to something else. And what's going to happen is that when those individuals connect with me, then here's my basic account. I can go to my network. This tab, this click right here, I can go to my network. And I cleared this out yesterday, so nobody's accepted. So what it will do is up at the top, it'll show me who, oh, here we go. Jorge accepted my invitation to connect. And that's just, I'd cleared that at the end of the day yesterday. So it's the only person since this morning who's accepted my invitation to connect. Before the end of this, if I go back, some of these payroll people will have accepted. So what I can do is I'll go back into here, see who accepted my connection to request. And today I'll probably send out connection requests for software engineers, an IT administrator, this payroll professional, a senior vice president of marketing. And so I'll send messages out to a bunch of people, and then I'll be able to go back through the list. I'll be able to see all the people who accepted my connection request. And now that Jorge has accepted my connection request, I can go into this contact info right here, and he probably gave me his email address. Look at that. Jorge gave me his email. Thank you, Jorge. So then I'm going to put Jorge into our applicant tracking system, which I'm not going to show you right now, but I would put his record into our applicant tracking system, map him against that job, and now I start an outreach campaign where I've got 3 different email messages that I'm going to send to Jorge over the next 3 days, probably, trying to see whether or not he's interested in having a conversation. Actually, I wouldn't necessarily do that. What I would do is, he's a graphic artist, so I'm not sure why we're connected, but I probably would take a quick look at his profile. If he were a payroll professional, I would look and see whether or not he's somebody that I want to have a conversation with. And if so, I'd send him an email message saying, hey, Jorge, and I'd tell him a little bit about the opportunity. You know, when would be a good time for you to talk? I'd love to have a conversation and see whether this opportunity might make a meaningful difference in your life. If Jorge wasn't someone who I wanted to talk to, I would simply send him a message and say, hey, Jorge, thanks for connecting. And so what's going to happen, and what I'm trying to show you, is that in less than 15 minutes, I was able to identify 54 people who are likely to either be or know the person who I'm looking for my client, who just asked me today to help her hire a new payroll professional. I would send those 54 messages out. Probably before the end of the day, I have 5, 6, 7 people who have replied. A couple of those, you know, they will have connected. I'll have their email address. I'll send email messages out to them. There's a good chance that 2 or 3 before the end of the day today will have replied to my email, and I will have a coordinator set a conversation for a phone interview with me sometime early part of next week. right? So that's how this works. So now, one final thing I want to show you, and then we're going to go talk about something else, is if you remember the search that I had, right? Remember the search that I have? It's over here, which is all I did was within 10 miles of 78746, and their current title included the word payroll. And the reason why I only went with payroll is if I said payroll specialist and their title said payroll administrator, I wouldn't have found them. But I just put in payroll. And then the other thing that I have up here is the keyword certified. Well, if I hadn't used the keyword certified and instead I had said multi-state, which is another important thing, right? Notice here I got Jessica, I got Elaine, I've got Kim, I've got, that's who my people have. So now if I instead search for multi-state instead of certified, now what do I get? I get 65 people. Oh, look, Jessica's still at the top of my list, but now it's Liz Evans and Tina Elliott and Beverly Beck. And oh, look, Thea's there again. Elaine's there again. But what we'd have is we'll have about, 20% of the same people will show up. About 80% of the people will be different. And so what's happening is that recruiters and hiring managers and all, we only have so much time, and we'll narrow this down to a set of 50 to 100, and my answer is probably in that set. And had I run the keyword search multi-state, I would have reached out to a different set of people, or at least 70 to 80% of them would be a different set of people. But as a recruiter, I don't mean to say that I don't care, it's that I don't care, right? What happens is there's no reason for me to believe that one set of this 65 people is any better or worse than the original set of 54. So I'm going to run the set. So if by early part of next week I don't have enough conversations going on, I would come in, I would change the keyword, I would reach out to an additional set of people, and the process continues. My whole point here, if we go back to the notion of getting to the front of the line, which is one first step in getting to the front of the line, is building your LinkedIn profile such that it comes up at the top of my search results. Jessica came up the top both times, right? She came up both times. And so there are other people who only came up in one search. There are other people who came up at the bottom of my search. And what I can tell you as a whole is that no one came up in my search who isn't part of my network. So that means that unless they're connected to me as the first person connected, or unless they're connected to someone I'm connected to or somewhere they're connected to, then they don't come up in my search results at all. So my network has somewhere in the neighborhood of a little over 300,000 people in the world who have the word payroll in their current profile. So what I'm going to show you first is, and I think the most important thing about creating and perfecting and optimizing your LinkedIn profile is not what your profile says when someone's looking at it. That matters a little bit, but step number one is if your profile doesn't come up at the top of search results, then no one's going to reach out to you. It's kind of like, companies spend a lot of money on search engine optimization for their websites, right? That's a thing. That's a thing, right? Because when you go run a Google search, it may say it come back with 300,000 results. You're not looking at 300,000 results. How often do you even go off of page number 1? Maybe page number 2. How often do you go to page number 10? The same thing is true in LinkedIn. So you could have a beautiful profile on page 10, and I'm never going to reach out to you. Neither will any of the people who work on my team. Neither will most hiring managers or HR professionals and the rest. So my number one piece of advice to you, and I'm going to show you how to do this with regard to building your profile, is focus on making your profile search optimized so it comes up at the top of the search list. And anytime you're thinking about what should be in your profile or not, the question in your mind is, will this make my profile come up higher in search results? If the answer is no, or I don't know, then it doesn't matter, right? So the only thing that really matters in your LinkedIn profile is, does it come up high in search results? The other thing I can tell you about that is that when you look statistically at the people who have a lot of stuff in their LinkedIn profile, they get reached out to less than people who have less stuff in their LinkedIn profile. Nobody has time to look at it. And yeah, so it's going to matter a lot less what the content is. So with that said, in the GoToWebinar interface that you've got, there's a section that says, let me open it up. It says handouts. There is one called leveraging LinkedIn.pdf, and leveraging LinkedIn.pdf is this document right here. And so here we go, right up at the top. Be easy to find. You want to search optimize your LinkedIn profile. And the reason why you want to search optimize your LinkedIn profile is I hope that that example that I just gave you gives you a really good idea of the reason why. I can also tell you that in the last 6 years or so, probably 98% of all hires that I've been associated with were people who we reached out to and found on LinkedIn. I can tell you statistically that nobody knows exactly, but it's less than 20%, probably less than 15% of all hires are ever made as people with regard to people applying for a job online. That's, probably less than 15% of all hiring. But what I can tell you is that 98% of all hiring that my team has done in the last 5 years is because we found people on LinkedIn. And I can also assure you that the majority of my friends who are recruiters would tell you the same thing. And the reason why is because when we post a job, there's a flood of people who apply. It's a total mess. And we don't like to wade through the pile. Most of the people who apply for the job, we're not even remotely interested in talking to. So even companies that post jobs, they don't always get looked at. So my point to you on that is that, by the way, it's still important to apply for jobs online. I'm not saying that it doesn't work. I'm just saying that more often people are hired because someone found them on LinkedIn. So I'm trying to show you what you need to do to be found. So so it's really search engine optimization for your resume. And here's the deal. This first point right here is really important, and I'm talking about this right here that says use multiple titles that people are likely to search for. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to show you my profile again real quick. And look, here's mine: recruiting leader, executive recruiter, technical recruiter, talent acquisition specialist. So if anybody were searching for anyone who has recruit, and by the way, if somebody searched for technical recruiter, I would come up because I do have the word technical. Well, I have technical recruiter, but they don't have to necessarily be next to one another. LinkedIn doesn't search that way. It's just searching for, that word and that word both in the title. If somebody puts it together as a string, it just doesn't matter what order they in. So acquisition leader, right? Executive recruiter, talent acquisition, anything that somebody's likely to search for, my profile is likely to come up. So my suggestion to you is that you use multiple titles in your LinkedIn positions. And let me show you what I mean by multiple titles. There's only one title field, and I click this little pencil that's supposed to let me edit. There's only one title field. You would just load this up with a bunch of titles, and it's the words that someone who's looking for you is most likely to search for. So if I go back over to this handout, here's an example. So if you're in IT, right, you might have system administrator, network engineer, Microsoft administrator, IT security. You might have, help desk, technical support, anything think about the role that makes the most sense for you going forward. And whatever it is that if you had to search for somebody like that, what are the different words that are likely to exist in those people's titles? Use those, right? Use those words. And because that's what somebody's going to use to search for. And because you don't know if somebody's going to search for system administrator, or whether they're going to search for security administrator, or whether they're going to search for help desk or help desk administrator, you don't know. So what you want all the different words that somebody's likely to search for, because using a title search is the #1 search that people use in LinkedIn. And so if you want to come up high in search results, you want to make sure that you use multiple titles. Here's another couple of examples. If you're in office management kinds of things, you might say office manager, executive assistant, administrative assistant, chief of staff, right? Receptionist maybe. Software developers might have software engineer, software developer, programmer, UI, UX, C++, things like that, right? Because somebody might search for a .NET developer and this person would come up. Sales executive, account manager, inside sales, sales representative, and avoid vague titles with an official titles that no one will search for. As an example, there was a time in my life where my title was technical analyst. Well, I mean, what is a technical analyst? No one will ever search for technical analyst. If your title was officially technical analyst, don't use that, right? Tell us something that really matters and something that's really meaningful. So LinkedIn and your resume are not legal documents, by the way. They are marketing pieces. Be really crystal clear about that. Your resume is not a legal document. It is a marketing piece, right? That's what it is. And your LinkedIn profile is a marketing piece. so that whatever title you're putting in doesn't have to be your quote unquote official title, whatever that means. It has to be something that someone is likely to use to search for and find you. All right. So we talked about this too, but here it is on your list. I want to point it out to you, which is have a current position. And the reason why it's so critical, it's absolutely critical that you have a current position, is because any of us who have an upgraded account, when we're searching for words in your title, we always, well, I shouldn't say always, 99.9% of the time, the default is, and we leave it at current. Not because we care whether you're employed, we leave it at current because we don't want people who have the title payroll 20 years ago and haven't done payroll in 20 years. That's a waste of our time. So it's always current because if your current title has the word payroll, then that's probably who I'm looking for, right? Also keep in mind that current doesn't mean that you're employed there. Current doesn't mean anything other than make this your current position. It doesn't mean you're getting paid. It doesn't mean you have a job. It doesn't mean anything other than it's your current position. So let me show you how to do that. So I want to show you, here's the multiple titles, and the way you put in multiple titles in your position is clicking this pencil. It's right there, right? You can use any separator you want. Vertical bar, this little pipe it's called, is commonly used. It's right over the enter key, shift, and it's the one that's right over the enter key. But this little checkbox right here, LinkedIn mislabeled that. I'm certain that they made a mistake. What they meant was, see where it says, I am currently working in this role? What they meant to say was, make this a current position. And you can have as many current positions as you want. Whether a position is listed as current or not has only to do with, did you check this box? If you don't check that box, it's going to ask for an end date. If you do check this box, then that makes it a current position. So when you're looking for a job, you must have at least one position in your LinkedIn profile for which you clicked this box that says, I am currently working in this role. And if it makes you crazy because you're not currently working in this role, just kind of get over that and know that LinkedIn mislabeled that. They meant for this to say, make this my current position, right? So if you're looking for a job, then what I'd suggest is you put in the titles of the jobs that make sense for you as your next move. If you're in IT, it might be IT help desk, Microsoft administrator, technical support engineer, right? A series of things that are the kinds of titles that make sense for someone who might be looking for you, and what titles are they going to use to search for you, which is the titles of the jobs that someone's trying to fill that are the kind of jobs that make sense for you, right? What you would put in as company is really simple, right? Well, so what you can do for company is you can say seeking new opportunity, right? See, a lot of people do that. Seeking new opportunities. You could say New Horizons student seeking new opportunities, because all that happens with this, I should have actually done a new position. Let me show you. I'm going to create a new position. I'm going to discard that so that I can actually add one. I'm going to add a position. I'm going to go to this document and I'm going to my tools here. I'm going to get my selection tool. I'm going to copy this right there. I'm going to copy that and I'm going to go paste that right here, paste this plain text. I'm going to say new seeking new. Location doesn't really matter. You can put in your location if you want to. It doesn't really matter. I probably wouldn't, but it doesn't really matter much. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick the date, kind of when my last thing ended or when makes sense when I started New Horizons. I have to pick a beginning date. And so I'm just going to, October, I'm going to say that was June this year, 2019, just because. And I currently work in this role, which means make this my current position, right? Always, always, always turn this off. Don't ever let it update your headline. I'll show you what that is in a minute, but just trust me. Don't ever update your headline automatically. It's silly. Just don't do that. And your industry doesn't matter. No one pays attention to it. We can't search for it. It kind of really doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. So if you're worried about industry, it doesn't matter. And you can click it if you want to and pick one, but it doesn't matter. So I wouldn't worry about it because it doesn't matter. All right. And under the description, what I would probably put is I would talk about getting my certifications. I would talking about, working toward, CCNA or CompTIA A+ Network Plus, whatever it is, certifications that I've got. And I would probably put a list of technologies, and I would probably put those kinds of keywords that someone's searching for. So I'd certainly put earning certifications. I would talk about the learning that I'm getting. I would use words like Microsoft and Cisco and other kinds of things if I'm looking for an IT position. It's those kinds of things that somebody's likely to use to narrow their search set down to a reasonable set. So you want to take as many of those related words as you want. Networking, routing, right? Switching, Cisco, Microsoft, SharePoint, SQL, whatever it is that's inside of your program that is part of what it is that and the types of things that you'll do and the kinds of roles that you'll be working on, then load that up here in this description, right? I can't tell you exactly what to put because everyone's different. But put something that's relevant that somebody's likely to search for, right? If you turn this on, it's going to send a message out to your entire network that you did that. So maybe you want to do that. I'm going to leave it off because I don't want my network seeking that showing this. So I'm going to save this. Let me show you what just happened. So now I have this position. It says System Administrator, Network Engineer, Microsoft Administrator, IT Security, New Horizon student seeking new opportunity. And here's what my description would be. So now if anybody was in LinkedIn right now and searched for, and I was in their network, searched for someone with system administrator in their title, I'm going to come up in their search results. They're probably going to get a lot of search results. They're going to narrow it down. And when they put in Cisco, they're not going to find me because Cisco isn't in my profile. So I will have just disappeared from their search results. But that's how you do it. All right. One final comment on this, and we're going to take a quick break for some questions. So if you got questions, let's get them in, right? The only other thing that I want to point out to you right now is that even on your past roles, right? Even in your past roles, you want multiple titles, especially if your past roles were ever relevant to the ones that you're moving forward to, because the person who has, if somebody searches for title network engineer, even in current, and it was fair for you to put network engineer in a previous position, then the more you have network engineer in your title field in your different positions, the higher you're going to come in search results, right? And the other thing that you might want to do is to make it hit even more, you can take this title, I'm going to copy it, and then down here in my description field, I'll probably say keywords, literally, right? I'd literally put that in there, and I'm going to put it in there again, and I'm going to I'd probably put in comments, I'm going to put in Cisco and Microsoft and all kinds of stuff so that if somebody uses keywords to narrow down their search set, I will come up in their search set. Final thing on this is for your past positions, ones that aren't current, sometimes people don't put months on their dates, and that's a really big mistake. And the reason why it's a really big mistake is that all of us who do this professionally, and most jobs have someone who's an HR recruiter or someone associated with it, is that if all you do is put years and you don't put months in your dates, what we know is that you're hiding something. Either gaps in employment you don't want us to see or something like that. So if you're going to not put months on your dates because you're uncomfortable with the reality, then I'm going to assume that you're hiding something anyway. And if you're not hiding anything and you just don't remember what the dates are, then I'm going to assume you're hiding something anyway, and that creates an integrity problem. So with regard to your resume, with regard to your LinkedIn profile, with regard to your profile in general when you're going to market seeking a new opportunity, any of the things that you might want to try to do to hide or reshape your past and who you are, including things like this conventional wisdom these days about cutting off your resume at 10 years, it's probably a bad idea. And the reason why is that once things start moving forward, people will discover that you were trying to mislead them and hide things, and it creates an integrity problem. I can tell you right off the bat that I've had a number of candidates who were rejected because they did something like tried to hide their age, and when they showed up, the hiring manager essentially told me, look, I don't care how old they were, but I feel misled. That's happened far more than I've had people who were discriminated against because of their age. So anytime you're trying to do something to hide something about your past or give it a second thought. Those of us who do this professionally know what all the tricks are, and it creates more problems for you than it solves. So months and dates, because if you just put in 2017 to 2018, I'm going to kind of think that you were working for 2 days, the last day of December and the first day of January. And so most of 2 years you were unemployed. So be careful with that, right? Just it's not a good idea. So put months on your dates because we pay attention and we actually care. It doesn't matter. This is not a legal document. It doesn't matter if you have the exact right dates. I mean, it doesn't matter on your LinkedIn profile. I mean, get in the neighborhood. I remember a job that I took back in like 1993. I don't remember what month it was. I think it was in the summer because I remember sweating. So I would pick July, I mean, that's close enough. All right. So that's that. And do I want to discard? Yeah, I do want to discard that. And actually I want it to, while I'm thinking about it, I better delete this position off of my profile. Delete that. Are you sure I want to delete? Yes, I do. And then right here on this handout, so what we talked about is multiple titles that people are likely to search for. We talked about having a current position. And then zip code. The notion here is to set your zip code in the middle of your commute area. And the reason why I suggest you set your zip code on your profile to the middle of your commute area is this. So in Austin, Texas, there's a town pretty far north. It's called Georgetown. There are really essentially no job opportunities north of Georgetown until you get all the way to Killeen, right? It's way on the outskirts of what would be between here and Georgetown. Essentially, you don't run out of stores and things like that. So it feels just like Austin, but it's a different city. But if there's an opportunity in downtown Austin, someone who is in Georgetown might be open to commuting to downtown, but if I put in the downtown zip code and I say within 10 miles, they don't come up in my search results. So what happens is that my suggestion to you is you consider taking your zip code on your profile and moving it to the middle of the area that makes sense for you to commute to. And that way you'll come up in more search results, because rarely is somebody going to search for someone whose zip code is in Georgetown. And if we're searching for people who are in Midtown and downtown, you won't come up in our search results. No one sees your zip code. I don't know what zip code you put in. I never know that in LinkedIn. It's only applies with regard to people searching for you. And where your zip code is at is way up here at the top. If I click this little pencil right here, come on. And I scroll down, here it is, right? Zip code, right? Zip code is right there. So that's where that's at. All right, I've been talking a while. I hope this stuff makes sense. This is some of the most important things I have to tell you today, because if you do, here's what I promise you. If you do what it is that I just told you, you're going to come up in so many more search results than you are currently. I have had many people say that after they went and did this, they started getting contacted by recruiters and other types of people. So I know that it works. It's not guaranteed to work for everyone, but I do know for certain that it works. So yeah, so what do you think, Mayan? Got any questions, comments, anything we ought to address right now other than just listening to me talk and show you stuff?
We do have a couple questions here.
Okay.
Just one comment for you, Gary. The glare on your glasses,
Yeah.
not sure if it's the new lighting, but
Right.
it's like a circle that's constantly,
Awesome.
there you go. All right. So getting into some of the questions we have, some people are noticing you were in the LinkedIn, I think, Sales Navigator.
Mm-hmm.
The question came up is it better to have just the basic free account or the paid account?
So as someone who's looking for a job, the only real advantage that you get off of a paid account, I mean, my account's like $100 a month, so you don't need that. The one that LinkedIn really wants to sell me is $1,000 a month. But no, as someone who's an individual looking for an opportunity, you don't. The only reason why you need a paid account is this, is that I'm going to show you in the next phase of what we do, how to go find people and opportunities for you to reach out to. And what will happen is that if you don't have a paid account, you'll run into what's called the commercial search limit. And that essentially is something that LinkedIn only lets you run so many searches before it won't let you run any searches anymore. So if you hit commercial search limit, the only thing you can do is wait until the first of the next month or pay money for an upgraded account. If you're a veteran, you can get a free upgraded account, and the easiest way to do that is to ask Google, right? So if I just go to Google and say free LinkedIn for for veterans, there it is. So you can find it that way. But when we get to the point where I'm showing you how to search for people, I'll show you a couple of shortcuts that you can use to try to avoid hitting the commercial search limit. There's a couple of tricks you can do to really make that not happen to you in a day or two, which is likely to happen. But that's the reason I have an upgraded account, so you don't run out of your ability to search. But we'll see that in just a minute. Other than that, there's not a great reason to have a upgraded account. I mean, I like LinkedIn making money. It makes it a better and better tool for me. They don't just, they just don't have to make your money.
Great. The next question is in the current search strategy that you were showing for the one in the state, how is that strategy applicable to those who are looking to make a relocation or those who are getting hired in other states?
Yeah, so the current or not current part won't have anything to do with that, right? You just want to make sure that you have at least one position on your profile, and it doesn't mean you had a job, right? If you're transitioning into IT as an example, and you've never held a job in IT, you still on your profile, you need to have a position that you create by clicking this plus button right here, and it needs to have the titles of the jobs that are going to make sense for you as your first IT job, and you need to click this as I currently work in this role, and you need to talk about seeking new opportunity, and you need to fill this the description section with the certifications you're getting and the keywords about the technologies you're using, so you're going to come up in search results. So that's the part about the current part, because most recruiters are searching for people whose title field currently contains some word. And if you're transitioning into IT and none of your previous roles say anything about IT, you're going to come up in no one search results. So that's one thing. The other thing is related to your zip code. And so the thing about the zip code in LinkedIn, and you won't like this answer, but it is the answer. It's always been the answer and may always be the answer, is you only get to have one. So if you're trying to relocate, like literally trying to relocate, and you know for certain that you would like to be in Austin, Texas, we'd love to have you here. If you're certain that you want to be in Austin, Texas, then maybe rather than putting your zip code where you live, you put your zip code in the middle of Austin, Texas. So somebody searching for people for jobs in Austin will find you. And then, once that conversation starts, then, you can address the fact that you're not in Austin, but, that's a different story altogether. Other than that, you can only have one zip code. So if you're really open to doing lots of different things, pick one and just know that your answer is not likely that it's going to be somebody's going to find you on LinkedIn. And so what we're about to get into here pretty soon is going to show you what you really ought to do to find a job. In fact, we hadn't gotten there yet, but I'm going to show you what I would do if I was looking for a job, and it won't have anything to do with your zip code. The only thing we're talking about right now is how to search engine optimize your profile. And the idea of search engine optimizing your profile is so that you do come up in search results when people are looking for you. But if your expectation is that you're going to find a job because somebody is looking for you, that happens to most of the people I get hired, but it doesn't necessarily happen to most people. I'm going to show you a more effective strategy to deal with it if you're really trying to relocate or something like that, but you can only put in one zip code. What else?
Great. This question is, and it's one that I think that we always usually see, if you are currently employed, can you place the student piece where you were filling out the experience without adding seeking new opportunity? This person is trying to avoid their current employer from seeing that they're looking for a new job. How would you go about doing that?
Oh, sure. Well, you can never, ever eliminate the possibility altogether that somebody's going to see something that makes them wonder. But, most employers don't look much at your LinkedIn profile. You just have to decide for yourself whether or not it's worth the risk. So if it were me, and essentially what I'm trying to do is I'm currently employed as a nurse, and I'm transitioning into IT, right? If you want someone to find you, right? If you want the chance that someone's going to find you through your LinkedIn profile, you're going to have to put in something about IT, all right? I mean, you're going to have to talk about system administrator and all that. And if you're transitioning out of being, and you're currently employed as a nurse, then you just risk the chance that somebody's going to say, hey, what's that on your profile, right? I mean, there's kind of no way around that. So you just have to decide, right, on that. So you still want to put in the title that, you know, I'm just going to put in IT manager, IT information technology manager. I'm going to put in something. I don't have to put in this company at all, right? I can put in a space, I think will do. Let me see if a space will do. And I'm going to just say 2019, because I don't want to put in a month because of what we're doing. Update my headline, always turn that off. And then I'm going to put in some kind of a description. Let me see what happens. And I click save. Oh, enter a company name. You know, what you got to put in something, right? I can't. Did you know that how difficult it is to type is directly proportional to the number of people who are watching you type? Okay, cool. So what I know is that if you think about these fields as just a way to put black pixels on white screen, then what happens is these black pixels are the title black pixels, and these black pixels are these characters, what do you want to call it, are the company pixels, and this is the description pixels. So what you want to do is just remember that whatever you're putting out there, this appears first, this appears next, and this appears next. And yeah, that's kind of the best you can do. So there is not a way to essentially, on the one hand, talk about these new opportunities and put yourself out there with this new current opportunity if you're currently in nursing without somebody being able to see you. Now, the good news for you is that you know, what I'm going to show you next is your more effective way of finding a job anyway. So, you know, it'll matter. I mean, it'd be nice if you could be found. I mean, you know, for the people who we get hired, miracles occur for them because somebody reaches out to them and they land a new job when they weren't even looking for one. But there's kind of not a way to, you can't really have your cake and eat it too. So that's kind of how it is on that. What else you got?
Great. The question is, how would you recommend we structure our LinkedIn for students that are seeking internships? Specifically, if there's career change with no direct or prior work experience. I know that you'll go into a little bit about that later, but that was mainly the question.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, again, I think what you do, an overall suggestion that I'll have for you is that, and this isn't just with regard to LinkedIn, make the whole job search process and your resume and everything that's going on a whole lot less formal. Don't worry about the rules, because assume that there aren't any rules, because whoever made up the rules, and there's every different way that companies hire and what they do and everything else. So don't worry about it too much. What I suggest is that your resume and your LinkedIn profile essentially tell a story. And I think resumes are upside down. I don't know any stories that start at the current and move backward in time. I don't know why resumes do either, but most of us who are really experienced recruiters, we actually read resumes and LinkedIn profiles from the bottom up, and they need to tell a story. And so if you do the same thing, then whatever has been happening here and you're now transitioning into a role and an internship makes sense for you, then what you would do is, you know, right here, I'm glad I looked at this because I need to get rid of this out of my profile. IT administrator, you know, IT security specialist. I'm not going to worry about spelling it right. And I would probably put in net, is it all caps? Net plus, A plus, security plus, right? And I'd probably right here, I would probably put seeking internship or new opportunity and leave it at that, right? You'd still fill in the description. You still want to put in keywords. You want to talk about Cisco and Microsoft and all the stuff and SharePoint and all those things. And you want to re-put this thing in there. So you come up, you re-put whatever is in your title down here. So you come up in people's search results. But I mean, that's pretty much what you can do, right? Is you got a title, a company, in this description along with dates, and that's what you got to work with. So it's about just tell your story and just say, hey, these are the roles that make sense for me, and I'm seeking an internship or a new opportunity, and there it is, right? Just be straightforward. What else you got?
Great. Just a couple more questions and then we'll move on.
Okay.
If I currently have a part-time job in IT and a full-time job in a different field, would
Yeah.
it be best to make the part-time my current position? Presently, both full-time and part-time are noted as my current job on LinkedIn.
Yeah, so in LinkedIn, I don't remember if it even asked you about full-time or part-time. If it does, just that kind of nobody cares, right? Just, you know, I wouldn't mention full-time or part-time. It's kind of immaterial. It doesn't have anything to do with anything. And what you can do is check this out. So I'm going to click on this one, which is I currently work in this role, right? And then what I'm going to do just to show you is I'm going to go back here and I'm going to edit this one and I'm going to change this to I currently work in this role. And I'm going to click save. And what's going to happen is I now have this one, Hire Factors, April 2018 through present. And I have, oh, why didn't it change that? Hang on a second. I guess I didn't hit save. Maybe I got to refresh my profile. Hang on. Come on. There we go. Oh my goodness. There it is. So see, both of them say date through present. So these are both current positions for me. So you can have as many current positions as you want. So I think that's the answer to that question, which is just make multiple ones of them current. And then the one that's going to come first is the one that, I'm going to put this back to March 2018 and save that. So the one that's going to come up first is the one that has the most recent start date, and that's the order that they come in, and you can't really change the order other than that. So that's what you would do. What else
Great.
you got,
We
Maya?
can just move on for now and then we'll answer more questions at the next break.
Okay, cool. All right, so I'm going to go back to this real quick. I don't want to deep dive into a bunch of these things, but just to give you a few other little talking points on some things that I think will help you out. So with regard to creating your profile on LinkedIn so that you increase the opportunities that somebody actually reaches out to you, that's what we're talking about right now. And we're about to talk about the flip side of the coin, which is actually a lot more powerful. So, you know, multiple titles that people are likely to search for, have a current position, put your zip code in the middle of your, so this one right here, searchable headline, is also important. So let me talk to you about this for just a second. We're going to talk about searchable headline and we're going to talk about keywords, right? So here's the deal. Let me go back to my profile right here. So in my profile, when I scroll up to the top of my profile, this is my headline. And the reason why my headline matters so much is that if I run, I'm in my non-upgraded account right here. And if I run a search for payroll, so a non-recruiter or a non-HR professional, someone who doesn't have an upgraded account, mostly hiring managers, right? I know a lot of companies who hiring managers are responsible for finding their own people. They won't have an upgraded account. They can't search for a current title. They don't know how to use LinkedIn, and they're going to come here and they're going to say payroll person, Austin, Texas, right? And I got 5,331 results, right, is what I got. And so what happens when somebody runs a search right here, when you run a search right here, then what's happening is it's showing you this person's name and their headline, their name and their headline, their name and their headline. And so your headline, payroll specialist at City of Austin. You remember earlier when I was showing you that checkbox that said never let it automatically update your headline, right? And the reason why never let it automatically update your headline is it's going to update it with title at company. And if you have title system administrator, network vertical bar, network administrator, vertical bar, help desk specialist at, and then your company is seeking new opportunity, then when somebody runs a search here, it would say Gary O'Neill, recruiting specialist, executive recruiter at seeking new opportunity. So it would just be stupid. So like, don't let it update your headline. But my point is that when someone who isn't a recruiter and someone who doesn't have an upgraded account runs a search, they're probably going to run their search right here. And when they run their search right here, it puts heavy attention on not your titles, but instead your headline, and it shows your name and your headline. And what's going to happen for somebody, if you notice that I ran payroll person in Austin, Texas, which is a ridiculous search, but there's a lot of people who would probably run that search. And I don't mean to say they're ridiculous, they just don't know. They got 5,000 or whatever results, right? And what they're going to do is most of them will probably be in Austin, and the same thing is going to happen, which is, see, I just ran this search in my regular account. All these people are probably in Austin. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and I got to go to another page. So somebody's going to go to another page, and what somebody who doesn't know how to recruit is probably going to do is they're going to click on Stacy, and they're going to try to decide whether or not they want to connect with Stacy or what it is that they're going to do. And they're going to look, right? And they're going to decide. But my whole point is that if somebody's running a search up here, then that's where this notion of having a searchable headline really, really matters. And the way that you make your headline searchable is that because you made your title on your current position searchable, why did I do that? Since you put in multiple titles for your current position, then come on, I don't want it to select that. I just want it to let me highlight this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to copy that, and then my headline, I edit it by clicking this little pencil right there, and then my headline is right here. And so I would paste whatever I have, I would paste that right there as my headline, right? And you know, I gotta clean it up a little bit, but I would have my headline be the exact same thing as the title on my current position, because that's the thing that somebody's going to search for me for. So I'm going to shut that down because I don't want to change my headline. But make your headline really searchable, and the easy thing to do on making it searchable is whatever the multi titles you put in your current position, put that in your headline. And that way when somebody searches for you up here, because some people are going to search for you up there, it's going to search this is what it's really searching. So you'll come up in their search results. All right. The other thing that I talked about is keywords, right? So somebody might say certified, and they might know that the certification is CPP, certified payroll professional. In fact, that might be all they put in Austin, Texas, because they don't know how to run a search, and this is what they're going to come up with. Catherine Potts, Chris Wallace. So my point is that in Austin, Texas, there are probably 5,000 at least payroll professionals, and when any of those payroll professionals, a lot of them are going to be of 5,000. A lot of them wish they had a new job. A lot of them, 500 of them are seeking a new job right now. 1,000 of them would be open to having a conversation about a better job. And so as a recruiter, I just kind of go, I need a set of about 50 or 100 of them to reach out to, because 20 or 25 of them are going to want to engage in a conversation. I don't have time to talk to all 1,000 of them. And so the same thing is going to happen for you, which is people are going to run a search, and if you don't come up in the first few pages of their search results, they're not going to find you, nor are they going to reach out to you, right? And they're going to use your title, and they're going to use different keywords, certifications, technologies, things like that, multi-state, whatever it is. If it's payroll or if it's IT, they're going to put in technologies and different stuff. If it's medical billing and coding, they're going to talk about medical billing and coding or insurance or something. So just play recruiter and whatever it is that someone is likely to do. The other thing you can do to figure out what words you ought to use is go look at the profiles of 20 people who are in the jobs that make sense for you, and go, like, you know, what is it? What do they say? Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. Go flatter some of those people by copying and pasting out of their profiles, right? It definitely works. All right, so there's that. So searchable headline, lots of keywords. Final couple of things is your work experience, and we're talking about building your profile. With regard to your experience, that's your work history section. It's essentially the same as your resume, right? It's essentially the same as your resume. The only difference is in LinkedIn, you're going to have that one position that's your quote unquote current position that has the titles of the jobs. That's the next job that makes sense for you. That wouldn't be in your resume, but it will be on your LinkedIn profile. Other than that, your resume and your LinkedIn profile, I think really ought to be kind of identical. By the way, on that note, if you have multiple resumes because you're going after multiple types of jobs, right? If you're going after a sales job and an operations job, this is a whole different conversation, but I recommend you stop doing that, because there are so many opportunities in most places for one or the other that I'm going to suggest, and we're about to get there, how to run a targeted job search. Because here's the truth. When you get to the point where someone is looking at hiring somebody, and let's say I'm hiring people for inside sales positions, and let's say you're hiring people for inside sales, right? You're the hiring manager for an inside sales team, and you have a group of 5 people who are going to go on, I love sales, I'm going to be a sales professional, an inside sales role with your organization is exactly what I'm about, and I'm driven to go do sales. And then you have 5 people who are kind of going, well, sales or customer service, I mean, no, either one would be fine. I mean, I'm open to admin stuff too. Who are you hiring? Well, you're hiring the people who really are clear about the fact that they're being salespeople. So if you think that going to market, being open to lots of opportunities gives you more opportunity, I'm here to tell you that it really, really eliminates an opportunity for you, because you're leaving it as an exercise to somebody else to figure out what to do with you. And they don't want to do that, and they can't do that. So you need to get really clear. So the question often comes up, well, how do I make if I've got multiple resumes, what do I do to make my LinkedIn profile? Which one do I use? And it's like, the answer is don't have multiple resumes. I mean, you might have slight variations, but narrow your search down and be clear about what it is you're going to do. And then you're doing yourself a favor. If you go to market looking for lots of different things, if you take the set of all people, if you take a set of 1,000 people who are really clear and they're focused on going about one type of job, and you have another 1,000 people who are open to lots of stuff, over a period of a month or 2 months, well, how many people, which set is going to have more people hired out of it? I guarantee you that the set of ones that are really clear about what they're going after, a significantly larger number of people got hired out of that set than the people who are going to market being open. So don't do that. Just stop. So your work history is the same as your resume. Try not to have multiple resumes. And be real clear about that. You might change it just a little bit to hit the keywords when you're going to apply online. You might change the language slightly to better match that particular employer. You might tune it a little bit. What I mean by having more than one is kind of don't have an IT resume and a nursing resume, right? Kind of don't, like, pick one or the other and go about that. Couple of last things here. Your picture, when in doubt, use a picture. The statistics are that profiles with pictures get clicked, I think it's 7, 8, 9, 10 times more often. And that's because in a list of search results, like right here, everybody has a picture. Yeah. Oh, this one doesn't. Who's more interesting, Catherine and Deborah or Krisha? Well, these ones like that don't get clicked on near as much. So when in doubt, put a picture. If you really don't want to put a picture, don't put a picture. Just know that the choice that you're making is, it's a lot less likely that somebody's going to click on your profile. If you're worried about discrimination that would come from your picture, whatever kind of discrimination it is, all I know is that if they're going to discriminate against you from looking at your picture online, then they're going to discriminate against you when you show up. So you may as well get that out of the way. And what I can tell you is that there's far less discrimination of all sorts in the world with regard to hiring than you think that there is, because I'm not telling you it's not out there. I'm just saying it's a lot less than you think it is. And I know, easy for me to say, right? But I'm just telling you that the times that I've literally seen it come into play with regard to hiring is not that much. And what I know is that since just statistically, your profile is going to get clicked on like 7 to 10 times more often, then you're going to be more discriminated against because of not having a picture than you're going to be discriminated of anything that could be in your picture. So, but it's still a personal call, right? It's, you have to decide. Formatting, there's no formatting tools in LinkedIn. If you copy and paste bullets into LinkedIn out of Word, it doesn't work so well. So you can use a hyphen or something like that, but there's no real formatting in it. So it's just, check it out. If you try to use formatting in your profile, check it on multiple browsers. And the other thing you want to do is that if I open up Jessica Riley's profile right here, let me show you a thing I can do with Jessica's profile. Come on. As recruiters, what we do is, I'm going to view her on my regular LinkedIn account. If I was really working with this individual and trying to reach out to her and have a conversation with her, what I'm going to do is right here under this more button, if it'll ever come up, come on. Right here, save to PDF. So I'm going to download her profile and put it into my applicant tracking system, right, is what I'm going to do. So what you ought to do is when you put formatting and stuff in your profile, make sure you download it yourself and see what it looks like as a PDF. Because if you put in much formatting and stuff, she doesn't have any in here. But if you put it in, it'll really screw this up. So yeah, so that's that on that. All right. We all good, Maya? I want to kind of move on to some other stuff. Let's switch gears. Anything we need to pause for?
Sure, there are a couple questions that did come in.
Okay.
Let's see here. So I know in some of our other career development sessions, you briefly mentioned it, but there was a question that came in. Someone had moved here from Germany while she was expecting, and she stayed home for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Should she fill that gap in the experience? Should she fill that gap in the experience field? She left that time frame out, but you said don't leave gaps. So how can she do that?
Yeah, always fill it in. Because here's the thing. I mean, we're all human, and believe it or not, hiring managers and recruiters are too. And we all know that things happen in people's lives. In fact, most of us are really supportive of people raising great families. I mean, that's one thing you'll commonly find a lot of support for. So, you know, psychology of people is that gaps in information, we fill in gaps with information with negative assumptions. And a great example is if you do have kids and they're old enough to be out late, they're high school or whatever it is, and they were supposed to be home at 11 and you can't get a hold of them and it's 11:45. I mean, what do you think happened? Do you think that they just got lost and they're deep in a Monopoly game at their friend's house and everybody's so deep in the Monopoly game that they're not answering their phone? Is that what you think happened? I doubt that's the assumption that you're making. My point is that humans fill in gaps with information with negative assumption. We just do it naturally. So when you have gaps in your resume, people fill that in with negative assumptions. So always fill the gap and just tell your story. So it's called family caregiver, or, you know, and I also know enough people kind of have things like household engineer or something like that. You know, I probably wouldn't get cutesy with it because some people react negatively to that. You know, you can say, you know, stay at home mom for 8 years. I mean, just be clear about it and tell your story. I think that the people who you want to work with are people who would appreciate you telling your story. And I think that the majority of people who are trying to hire people, I appreciate it when people tell their story. So fill in the gaps and just tell your story. What else?
Great. So this next question deals with job discrimination in a sense. I know throughout the session you've been mentioning, you know, you don't hold back and enter as much information as you can and not leave the years out of the profile. But this person's been told over and over again not to go past 15 years because they are in their 60s and they've experienced this job discrimination. What are your thoughts on that and how to kind of rectify that?
Right. So here's my suggestion on reconciling different pieces of advice. So I recognize that a whole lot of the advice that I give is very different than what you hear in some other places. And I guess the first thing I would suggest that you do is consider where the advice is coming from. So in my particular case, I can speak about me. I'm an entrepreneur. I've built multiple companies. Even before that, I've hired 500 people of my own as a hiring manager. I've worked inside of so many companies in some serious way with regard to how hiring works. And for the last 20 years, I make my living because people get paid. And so the real simple and very direct way to go about it is that because I get paid when people get hired, if you were my candidate, right? If I was presenting you to one of my clients, here's what I know. If I allow it to move forward with you chopping your resume off and essentially trying to hide your age, the chances of me getting paid goes down, right? The chances of me getting paid goes down when your profile or your resume shows your age different than it actually is, especially by a dramatic amount. And the reason why is because I've gotten many calls, because I hadn't seen the person before, I talked to them on the phone, from hiring managers saying, hey, I don't care how old they are, but I was expecting them to be in their mid 30s and they come in, they're like in their early 60s. I feel misled. I've had that call far more than I've had anybody discriminated against because of age. Is it out there? Yeah. I'm just saying that discriminated against because of an integrity problem is a whole lot higher. I think that a lot of the people who dispense career advice have never made their living because people get hired and they've never been a hiring manager, so they don't really understand how the game is played. They want to believe that, and it's probably true, that you might get more interviews. I just don't think that you get more jobs. So there's so many different opinions on it. My experience, and the only thing I can tell you is I would not present you with that much difference that would allow somebody to believe that your age was very much different than it is, because my chance of getting paid goes down. And since my opportunity to get paid goes down, that means their opportunity to get hired goes down. So in some sense, I would say that whoever you're listening to with regard to career advice, have they ever made their living because people get hired? Or are they just guessing that, and doing the best they can? There are a lot of people that are really well-intentioned. I just don't know that they've been inside that many companies and see how the game is actually really played. So that's what I think. I just think that fundamentally, anytime you're trying to hide something, then you create an integrity problem, and that integrity problem is going to hurt you far more than anything else. And besides, I mean, if you're older or whatever, don't you want to work with a group of people who would appreciate that? So easy for me to say again, but that's what I think. So, do I have fact to back it up? Only that I run recruiting teams, and I never let my recruiting teams present somebody when we knowingly know that they've got significantly more experience than they show. We just won't do it. So that's my deal. What else?
Great. The next question is in regards to connecting. Is it wise to send a note ahead of the connection request for a third level connection if I do not know this person or have true connections, but would like to use connections in the future for future career moves? Should that be something I do? Should I even start requesting folks?
You know what? The reason why I'm smiling is because that's our next section that we're talking about right here, build your network. So let me talk about this, and then I'll answer that question. All right?
Perfect. Go. Okay. Let's move on then.
Perfect. So here's the thing. The only time you come up in my search results, like I was doing earlier, is if you're part of my network. And LinkedIn recognizes 3 levels of connections, right? So first level is a direct connect. And what that means is that at some point in time, I sent you a connection request. And what I mean by that is, like, Jessica, I can click connect, and I'm just gonna click send now. So I just sent Jessica a connection request, and if she accepts my connection request, then she'll be in my first level network. We'll be first person connected. And what'll happen is that anybody she has 222 connections. And so if I'm not connected to her 222 direct connections, all 222 of those will become my second level connections, because I'm connected to Jessica and Jessica's connected to them. But I know I've already got 6 mutual connections. So that means that she's got, if Jessica accepts my connection request, I'm going to gain 216 second level connections, or maybe second level connections to my network. So the way that it works is that if you either send a connection request and somebody else accepts it, or they send one to you and you accept it, then your first level connection. I would like to be first person connected to all, however many it is, 500 million people who are in LinkedIn. I think that you should too. If you ever see anything where LinkedIn is talking about only connect with the people that you know, um, I think that's not a great piece of advice. And the reason why is because LinkedIn is not a social network. I can pretty much see everything about you except for your email address, even if I'm not connected to you. So you're not, you're not giving away anything when you connect with people. The reason why LinkedIn suggests that is that if I pay them $1,000 a month, then I can see everybody in LinkedIn, regardless of whether I'm connected to them or not. So if everybody connected to everybody, then LinkedIn couldn't sell their $1,000 a month accounts. And so they ask you to not connect to people who you don't know because they make more money. And I don't begrudge them making more money. They just don't need to make mine or yours if we can, work the system. So I suggest you connect to as many people as you possibly can. So anybody I'm connected to, anybody they're connected to that I'm not connected to is my second level network. And any of those people that they're not connected to becomes part of my third level network, right? So I don't know how big it is. My network's like about 15 million people, I think it is at this point in time. So that's through my third level network. I think I got about 5 million in my second level network. So if you connect with me, then you're going to pick up 5 million people who could now see you. Because when I run a search, if you're not in my first, second, or third level connections, you don't come up in my search results. So anytime somebody's searching for you, if you're not in their network, you do not come up in their search results. And if you're first person connected, you come up higher in search results than if you're second person or third person. So if you want people to find you, you better build your network and you better build it big, right? Because the more connections you have, and the fact, if you're first person connected to me, but you're also connected to a bunch of the same people that I'm connected to, you come up higher in search results. So the closer our connections are, the higher you come in my search results. And I've got so many people connected to me in the IT world that, unless you're not first person connected to me and connected with 5 people that I'm connected to, you'll be on page number 5 of my search results. And the same is true with most recruiters. So you really need to build your network, right? This brings us, and I'm going to show you how to do this in just a second, but that brings us back to the question, which is, should you connect through another person? So I get messages sometimes where somebody says, hey, I see you're connected to so-and-so. Here's the thing. Most of the people who ask me to do that, I don't know them. So I add no value in the connection, right? So, if Sally asked me to connect to Bob and I don't really know Sally, I'm like, what would I say to Bob? I don't know you from Adam. So I'm certainly not connecting you. And then a lot of times I don't know Bob either. Like I don't know most of the people who are in my network. So that would be me saying to Bob, who doesn't know me, let me connect you with Sally, who I don't know, right? It's just silly. And so it really doesn't work. So the only time it would ever make sense for anybody to connect through you is if they really know that person well. And then what's better than them connecting you through LinkedIn, if I really know Bob well and I know you and I'm willing to connect it, I'm not going to do it through LinkedIn. I'm going to pick up the phone or send an email message or something and say, hey, Bob, I know Sally over here. You really ought to talk to her. So yeah, I probably would never, ever, 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 never use that feature. I just wouldn't. And the other thing is that when you're reaching out and connecting with people, it's far more powerful to do it yourself. So as an example, if you were connected to Bob and I wanted to be connected with Bob, I still wouldn't connect with you through you. I would connect direct. And if I was connecting direct and I actually knew you, I would say, hey, Bob, I was talking to Sally the other day and she suggested that I contact you, because most of the time people want to work with people who do what it takes to get the job done. And by direct connecting to a person, then I'm exhibiting the kind of behavior that they really want to hire. So you're far better off not working through that kind of stuff and going and doing a direct connect yourself. If the person who you see is connected to someone knows them well enough that they could actually add value, get them to walk down the hall, get them to pick up the phone, get them to go like advocate for you in some way other than, sending a LinkedIn connection request. That's a pretty weak thing. So that's my take on that. All right, so here's the thing. Here's how you build your network. So on the one hand, it's helpful to connect with the people who you know, but the people who you know are probably not the people who are searching for you. It's me and my team and HR people and hiring managers who you don't know. Those are the people who are searching for you. So connecting to the people you know, that's fine, but it's probably not gonna, it might help you, but it won't help you as much to find a job as what I'm about to show you. So let me show you. So what you really need to do is you need to connect with lots of recruiters, and you need to connect with lots of hiring managers, because those are the people who are searching for you with respect to employment related kinds of things. And if you're not in their network and you're not first person connected to them, you're going to be so far down their list when they run a search, they're never going to reach out to you. So yeah, so have a current job, have multiple profiles, have your zip code in the middle of the area you're willing to commute to, put in the keywords that somebody's likely to narrow the set down, and then connect with lots of recruiters and hiring managers. So let me show you how to do that. So this is not my upgraded account, right? This is the same basic account that you got. I never run a search up here, ever, 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 never. I suggest you don't either. What you do instead is you click here and you say, I want to search for people, and then it's going to take you to a little bit more advanced search. Awesome. Now check this out. I'm searching for people, and I'm going to click all filters right here, all filters. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll down. So all filters, right? I'm scroll down, and down here I get to put in title. I'm going to put in title recruiter, right? And now notice on the non-upgraded account, I don't get to say current or not. So this is going to be people who ever had the word recruiter in any job or any position they ever held, right? But you know, that's the best that I can do. And in the location, I'm going to click Austin, Texas, just because that's, you know, where my network is. And I'm going to click apply. And what it's going to tell us is that in Austin, Texas, there are 3,636 people who have the word recruiter in one of their titles who list their location as in Austin, Texas, right? I'm going to change this to San Francisco, where I don't have a ton of connections. Let's go see. In my network, and by the way, this only shows you people who are in my network, first, second, or third person. There are 19,279 people in the San Francisco area who have the word recruiter in their title, and they're all the ones that are current are going to come up at the first of the list. And notice that I don't even have any first person connections. It starts with second person connections to recruiters, and there are 20,000 of them, right? 20,000 of them. So you want to connect to as many of those as you can. And so if it were me, what I'd probably do is I'd go back to all filters, and I'll scroll down here, and I'll probably say technical recruiter, and I'm going to apply that. I'm going to run my search again, and I'm going to get it down to 5,000. All right, here we go. So now I'm just going to go. Now, earlier I told you the question was about, do you need an upgraded account? And I told you that the reason why as an individual you might need one is to, otherwise you're going to run in what's called the commercial search limit. And that means that you're running so many searches, LinkedIn thinks that they can get you to pay them. Let me show you a way to run out of search results in a hurry, to hit that limit in a hurry. So if I bring this up and I just ran a search, so that's one, right? There's one. If I click Kimberly and I go to Kimberly's record and I click connect, come on, click connect. I'm going to add a note. She's probably not going to read it, but why not? Hi, Kimberly. It's always, oh my God, always great to be connected with recruiters in I'm going to change a little bit, care to connect, Gary. And I'm going to put this into my copy buffer, copy that, and I'm going to send that invitation. And by the way, I want to show you real quick, the reason why I don't put spaces or anything in that is I'm going to show you my network. Hey, Scott, you're welcome. Maybe Scott's on this call right now. But see, it only shows you like one line here. That's all that I get to see when somebody's connecting with me. Please connect with me, by the way. I only get to see one line. So if you spread it all out, all it would do is say, hi, Gary. And if you said space, when it down, all I see is, hi, Gary, right? So just know that for somebody to see more, they actually have to click that. And so, yeah, keep it short, sweet, to the point. If you can get it all in one line like that, then you're better off. So I probably ought to work on making mine even smaller than I currently do. Where was I at? Okay, so what I did was, there she is. Is Stacy? Stacy wasn't the one. I'm so sorry, I got lost in my stuff here. Jessica. Oh, so I'll go back to this one. So I was at Kimberly's record, right? I sent Kimberly a message, and now if I click back and I click back to my search results, I just ran that search again. So there's two, I just ran it twice, right? Now if I click on Maria Gustafson and I go to her profile and I click connect and I add a note and I paste the note and I say Marissa and I hit send, then I have to go back 2 pages. You know, you can drop this down, you can hold it down and you can go back 2 pages like that without having to wait. But I just ran that search again. So that's 3. I ran that search 3 times, right? Every time you come back, you rerun the search. So yeah, don't do that. So don't even do that in Google. Why would you do that? Do you just like click on a thing and go back? I mean, don't do that. Here's what you do instead is if you right click, you can see open in a new tab and right click and open in a new tab. Or even better is hold down the control key or the command key and that does the same thing. You'll note, like, look up here, right? See right up here? Watch what happens when I hit control click. See, it opens it in a new tab. And now what I do, now that I got them opened in a new tab, I'm going to go to, this should be Angel. Come on, Angel. Hurry up. Let's go, Angel. Let's go. Recruiting is a very, very busy job, by the way. If you're working with recruiters and sometimes people don't get back to you, I'm not saying that they shouldn't. I'm just saying that the reason why applicant tracking systems have these built-in filters to slice and dice your resume by keyword, how many keywords match or how many words match the words in the job profile is that I have friends who work on a team at Indeed. They're responsible for 60 different positions. They have an average of 300 people per position, right? So do the math. What is 60 times 300, right? I mean, why shouldn't I should be able to do that. Should be able to do that in my head, but I'm going to run the number real quick right here. So in 1 month, they'll be responsible for 60 new positions and they get 300 applicants. That's 18,000, right? 18,000 people apply for the jobs that one person is responsible for. If they looked at all of them, they would never do anything but look at resumes and no one would get hired. So recruiting is very busy. So if you're waiting for recruiters and people to get back to you, just take it upon yourself to get back to them and help them out, because if they're not getting back to you, it's just because they're buried. So now that I've got Angel's record up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit connect. I'm going to hit add note. I'm going to paste that and I'm going to say, hi, Angel. And I'm going to click send. And as soon as that goes, I'm going to close that tab. And now I'm going to go to Neha and I'm going to do the same thing. So what I suggest you do, and the way that you can keep from running out of your commercial search limit, is don't click it and go back, because you rerun your search every single time, and then just open them up in new tabs. Do that, because otherwise each page has, like, does it have 20? No, they've probably did this so that you run a commercial search limit faster. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So if you clicked on each one, by the time you got through this page, you just ran 11 searches. So yeah, don't do that. Right? Don't do that. So go find recruiters and go connect with lots of recruiters, because those are the people who are searching for you. And then what you need to do is connect with hiring managers. And by the way, in any given day, once you started sending out, I don't know, a couple of hundred requests, it'll start asking you for people's email addresses. Sometimes you'll see one that somebody set up, but when it starts consistently asking you for people's email address before you can send a connection request, then congratulate yourself, because you sent out a bunch of connection requests today, and come back tomorrow and do it again. But that even happens with us with an upgraded account, right? And people say, well, how many connections can I have? And I send out connection requests indiscriminately for years and years and years, and it's never been a problem. So what you can also do is if you want a job in IT, the title I'm going to look for is IT director, because that's one set of hiring managers I want to be connected to. Hiring managers are connected to recruiters, and they're connected to one another. So if you connect to 1,000 hiring managers in an area, or 500 of them, then you're going to increase the number of people who could see you in a search by probably a couple 100,000 if you're in a metropolitan area that's large enough. Just by connecting with a bunch of hiring managers, you'll become so much more visible. So in San Francisco, if I look at people whose title is director of IT, I just came up with 2,700 of them. So off you go, right? Control click Dan and Cynthia and Scott Rowe, and go and connect with those people, because those are the people who are searching for you. So if you spent 10 days connecting with 300 people per day and half of them accept your connection request, then you just connected to an additional 1,500 people directly. They probably all have networks of several hundred, so you probably increase the total size of your network by 50,000 or so by doing that. And this is huge. You really need to do this, right? If you having a LinkedIn profile without a network is essentially having the same thing as having no LinkedIn profile at all. I mean, don't bother. So this is important stuff. All right. What do you think, Mayan? I'm about to shift gears again. So are we good?
We have quite a few questions that did come in. Let's see here. A couple things that came up. Kind of going back to headlines and things like that. If you're mainly looking for internships, should you list in your title intern, or should it be something along the lines of assistant or officer? This person is looking for paid internships in advocacy. So she's wondering if she needs to, I guess in a sense, build up what she's doing, even though it's an internship.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And so what I would say is probably it's good to mention that, but you wouldn't want to preclude maybe a full-time opportunity, right? So, you could always talk about seeking new opportunity or internship. So yeah. Now the thing about it is, most of what I'm talking to you about is, what do you need to do to make sure that when somebody's searching for you, that they'll find you? So if somebody is searching for an intern, then you might figure they're probably not likely to search for the word internship. They're probably likely to search for the word intern. And so anytime you're doing anything with your profile, think about it from the perspective of the person who's running the search to find you. And so what words are they going to use? And so you probably want to say something along, open a new opportunity, or, being an intern. That's probably not quite the right way to phrase it, but you probably want to use intern, because LinkedIn search is not very smart, and it doesn't recognize, if you search for intern, it won't hit internship. Yeah, right. But that's the way that it works. So again, it's all about, when you're building your profile, think about the person who's searching for you. What words are they going to use? And they probably aren't going to search for internship. They're probably going to search for intern, right? So yeah, you would put that out there for sure, because there are certainly people looking for intern. And another one that's big, because the federal government is starting to put money into it, and it's similar, is called apprenticeship. So, you could say apprentice. And you can put that in your LinkedIn profile as many places as you can, because when people are searching up here, right, up here, then it searches your entire profile. So if you have the word intern in your profile one time, and I have it in my profile 5 times, and everything else about our profile is the same, we're both connected to the same people, I come up higher in search results than you do, because I had intern in my profile 5 times and you only had it in there 1 time. So LinkedIn search results are really miserably simple, but that's how it works. What else?
Great. This person said they have a master's degree in a field that may be relevant later in their new IT career, but probably not in the next couple of years. Should they completely remove it from their LinkedIn and resume, or keep it?
Keep it. Your resume and here's the thing. Your resume and your LinkedIn profile need to tell your story, and that's part of your story. I'd suggest that you never remove any part of your story. And if your story is a long story, then a simple example is, I was working with a gentleman a number of years ago that the first 17 years of his career was in hotel and restaurant, management. And so what we did is we collapsed 17 years into one position on his resume and LinkedIn profile that essentially said hotel and restaurant management, and then essentially said for high-end establishments such as the Four Seasons and blah, blah, blah. Same sort of thing with somebody who maybe was in the military for 20 years, quite a while back, collapse that into just one thing. But yeah, I think you need to tell your story. I mean, tell your whole story. Now, the other thing you can do is if you have like a big chunk where you were doing consulting or doing a bunch of different jobs in the same area, just because you had a different employer doesn't mean you have to have a different entry in your resume. Join us for Resumes at Rock and go into this in some detail. But my point is that if I go to my profile, I hate to go there because it's going to take too long for it to come up. But what I can do is on any single position that I've got, I could essentially put a 15-year period into the description. I can even put other dates. So, I could say from, 1991 through, 1993, IT consultant, and I could have, highlighted things under there, bullet pointed essentially, kind of saying for clients such as Hewlett Packard and Exxon or whatever it is. And so you can use the description area to essentially provide more detail under a whole period of time that you want to collapse together. More small chunks is not, fewer bigger chunks of time is better on your resume and your LinkedIn profile than lots of little chunks, right? So join us for Resumes at Rock and we talk about that a whole lot more.
Great. And along the lines of the chunks of time, this person was asking, it's kind of a two-part question, but in the same vein, how is a background check necessary since you're filling in the gaps? Wouldn't a background check actually, in a sense, naturally fill those gaps in?
Well, yeah, but I mean, the question is, how do you get to the background check? So what I know is that so many people up front. So, earlier I was talking about some friends of mine who are working 60 positions, which is ridiculous, and 18,000 people, applying. And so, essentially in the early stages of the process, people are looking for a reason to screen you out. Gaps in your background make you look like a job hopper. It's a reason to screen you out, and people are looking for a reason to screen you out. So if you get screened out when somebody's just evaluating your resume or LinkedIn profile, which by the way, usually is somebody who's really junior in the organization, they don't necessarily know how to look at resumes or anything else, they're just trying to screen you out. So if there are gaps in your resume, then you get screened out and you never get to a background check. So that's the reason why. You won't get there.
A couple more questions before we move on here, because I know we're heading towards the top of the hour.
Yeah.
Is there a difference between a headhunter and a recruiter? That was a question someone had.
I guess so, but why does it matter? I guess the question would be. So here's what I can say about that in general is that, so I guess I would have to call me and my team, we're headhunters. And the reason why we're headhunters is that a lot of people who are in corporate America who call themselves recruiters, I wouldn't call them a recruiter at all. They're posting a job and they're responding to some stuff and they're screening some resumes and they're sending them over to hiring managers. They're not even talking to anybody. So the distinction of a headhunter is we don't post jobs at all. I don't, my team doesn't. And we exclusively use LinkedIn and conference events and the rest, and we go find people and we reach out to them and we go, hey, we'd like to talk to you about changing your life. And so, we go directly target people and we directly reach out to those people and we go try to engage them in a conversation. So that's what people refer to as a headhunter. So yeah, me and my team, we're headhunters, and but we do traditional recruiting work as well. Here's what I can tell you about all titles is that titles are meaningless. Once you do what I do, for as long as I've done what I do, you figure out that titles don't matter. If you look at something like project manager, I would never use that title. I mean, there are millions of people, or it becomes so generic that it kind of doesn't matter. If you talk about director of IT, I know directors of IT who are in a 10-person company, and I know directors of IT who work at Dell, and their jobs are radically different from one another. So don't put much weight in titles. They kind of don't matter. And the other thing I can tell you with regard to recruiters is that for whatever reason, some people want to think that third-party recruiters, in other words, people who don't work directly for a company, somehow aren't as valuable. They're way more valuable. The recruiters who work for third-party companies are so much better. I would never hire somebody who is just a corporate recruiter, like ever. They don't have any game. And so what I can tell you is that if you were working with me or one of the members of my team, with regard to an opportunity at one of our clients, we'll get you in so much deeper, so much further, so much faster than their corporate recruiters would. It's not even funny. So given the chance, I would just say don't discriminate against different kind of recruiters. If somebody wants to talk to you about a job opportunity, I'd probably talk to them about it. So, and just like any job, 20% of all people who are recruiters are great at what they do. 20% of them are really worthless, and everybody else is just kind of average.
Great. Can go ahead and move on.
Okay, cool. All right, so here's the last thing that I've got to talk to you about. We got just enough time to do it. So grab this. So here's the thing. I'm gonna skip part of this because you can search for jobs on LinkedIn. I mean, it's just like any other job board. And by the way, if you're probably familiar with Indeed, right? You're probably familiar with Indeed. The better job search engine nobody seems to know about, which is Google Jobs. It's way better. I mean, who scrapes websites better, Google or Indeed? Google's so much better. So yeah, check this out. Look at a job search engine that's so much better than Indeed's ever. Join us for Effective Job Search Strategy, and we'll tell you all about this, because how you apply for a job matters. As an example, if you're on Indeed and you apply through Indeed, what's going to happen is your resume is going to get reformatted into a Indeed resume. They're not going to give you your phone number. They're going to change your email address to an Indeed email address. I don't know who you are. They'll blind copy a lot of your stuff. They'll get rid of a lot of your background, and they'll make your resume look just like everybody else's. And if we're desperate, we'll go look at those. So if you're applying through Indeed, as an example, and you use their quick apply, that's your least likely path to get paid attention to. If you see a job that's posted on Indeed for XYZ company, go to XYZ company's website and apply for the job directly on their website. So how you apply for a job actually really matters. So join us for Effective Job Search Strategies, and we'll talk to you all about that. But what's even better than any of that is what I'm about to show you. So here's the thing, right? Let's look at statistics for just a second. So in Austin, Texas, with regard to machine learning engineers, because that's what I've been working on real recently, there are somewhere in the neighborhood of about 2,000 machine learning engineers in Austin, Texas. We got a lot of them. And so what I know also is that when we did a quick survey of about 50 of them recently, what we saw was that based upon their profiles on LinkedIn, average length of employment was about 2.7 months. So let's just say 3 years, just to round it up to make it useful. So what you figure is that since the lifespan is 3 years, you can essentially take, 2,000 divided by 3 years, that's 667 who are going to be changing jobs this year. It's actually less than that, right? It's probably 2.5. So if I actually run the numbers, 2,000 divide by 2.5 years, that's 800 of them, and I divide that by 12. So that means that 67 machine learning engineers are going to be changing jobs this month, and most people are open to changing jobs for about a 4-month period if I reach out to them ahead of time. So I go 67 times 4. So there's 268 machine learning engineers who are actively thinking about changing jobs right now. So that's what, about 12% of them. So it's about 12% of them. And that means that at least 12% of all people who hire machine learning engineers are thinking about hiring one, because hiring managers know months in advance. So you figure that if there are 2,000 machine learning engineers and each team has 3 of them, then there's somewhere in the neighborhood of 700 hiring managers, and 15% of them are considering hiring somebody like right now. So that means 70, 80, 90, almost 100 hiring managers in Austin, Texas are looking to hire machine learning engineers right now, but yet those jobs aren't posted, right? They're not posted. So my point is that if you reach out to hiring managers and you reach out to recruiters and they're in the kinds of companies that have the kinds of problems that you solve, then you're getting yourself to the front of the line when there isn't even a line yet. Because by the time a job is posted, it's highly competitive. 300 people are going to apply. Chances of your resume even getting looked at is, slim and none. And so what I'm going to show you right now is maybe the most important thing that I've got to show you today. So let me close a few of these windows and I'll show you like right now. So what you need to do, if I was looking for a job, here's what I would do. And this is all in those notes in my handout. So step number one is you got to find companies that have the kinds of problems that you solve. And that means that what I'm going to go do is I'm going to go search for companies who employ the kind of people in the kind of jobs that make sense for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here to search. This is not my upgraded account. This is the same account that you've got. And I'm going to search for people, right? When I search for people, I'm going to turn on all filters. And in all filters, if I wanted a job in Austin, Texas, then I'm going to scroll down and let's say that I want IT help desk is the job that makes sense for me, let's just say. Then I'm going to find people who are in IT help desk jobs. That wasn't a great search, but we can look at it. So there's 40 results. So here's ones we know. Robert Half, that's a staffing agency, but Taminos hires people like that. National Instruments, McCambridge Singer and Mahoney, Insurance Network of Texas, Austin Independent School District, Kforce, Longhorn Health Solutions, Infogain. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go make a list of all the places where these people work, right? I could change my my search a little bit, and I can say IT administrator. And if I run my search on IT administrator, this is my non-upgraded account. I got 322. So JMB Crumbie Construction, Talru, Comico Technology Incorporated, WS Foundation, Kabam, Indeed, Powerhouse, right? So I can make a whole list of companies that hire people like that. Now what I would do is once I have that whole list of companies, I'd probably connect with some of these people, right? Because then when they connect with me, it's like, hey, I'm an IT administrator too. Is your company hiring right now? I mean, go reach out to these people, right? And go talk to them. And then what I do though is now I'm going to come back and I'm going to go to all filters. And now that I found those companies, let's see, one of them was, let's just try this one. Comico Technology. I'm going to go to all filters and I'm going to go search for recruiters and hiring managers at that company. So I'm going to put in that company. There it is. Comico Technology in Austin, Texas, right? I'm going to get rid of that because it might not matter. And what I'm going to go do is I'm going to go search for somebody with the title recruiter whose current company is Comico Technologies. I'm going to click apply and let's see, did we get lucky? No, we didn't get lucky. So we're going to go change that again. And what I'm going to go do is I'm going to put in this filter that's called IT. Let's see if we can come up with people who have the word IT in their title. There we go. IT administrator, Brian Calloway, and IT manager. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to control click so I don't run out of my commercial search limit any faster than I can. I will now connect with both of these individuals. I'm going to send them a message that essentially says, hey, I'm an IT administrator here in Austin, Texas, seeking new opportunities. Let's connect. And I'm going to send those connection requests to Ginsun Park, and I'm going to send that connection request over to this other gentleman, and then I'm going to move on. So then I'm going to close these, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick one of the other names that was off of the list. I'm going to change this company to one of those others that are off my list. And I'm going to go find recruiters and hiring managers and peers inside of those companies that already employ people who do the kind of job that I do, because at any given time, somewhere between 15 and 20% of all those hiring managers and all those recruiters are starting to look for people because they know somebody's turning over. They're going to get rid of them, or they're growing, or whatever it is. And that's way before the job is ever posted, way before it's ever competitive. And so if you start reaching out to these people and you identify 300 people and you have a campaign of communication with those 300 people that you're going to send out over a period of time, you're going to send out 900 messages over a couple of weeks, and I promise you something great is going to happen, because I mean that's how we hire people. And it's in your notes down here what kind of message you might send out. So it's something, you got to craft your own message to make sense for you, but it looks something like this. I mean, once someone is connected with you, you generally have their email information. I don't send messages through LinkedIn, and the reason why I don't send messages through LinkedIn is because a lot of people filter all their LinkedIn messages into the spam because they get so much garbage from LinkedIn. So You know, you can send a message through LinkedIn, but you'll get a lot better response if you send it through email. And the way that you find somebody's email address is that Daniel Young, I'm first person connected with him. Great example of somebody I'm first person connected to. And I don't know Daniel Young from Adam. If you wanted to connect with Daniel Young, it's not through me, right? Send him a message directly. But I could send him a message here, or I can click contact info, and there it is. I got his mobile phone number and I got his email address. I'm going to check. Circadian Risk. Is he still with Circadian Risk? Yeah. Awesome. So it's Circadian Risk. I got his email message, or I got his email address. And what I'm going to do, and also, by the way, if I remember right, I got his Twitter. No one looking for a job sends him a direct message through Twitter. No one does. You'll be the only person who ever does that. And you know, they're hiring developers. So, and this person's the founder, you better believe they're going to pay attention to you, even if you're not a developer, right? So now you got this person's email message, and what you're going to do is you're going to send them an email message, something like this: networking for IT administrator support positions, whatever it is that makes sense, and pick up the title of the person, the people who already work there. Hi, my name's Gary O'Neill. I'm a certified Microsoft administrator, IT security specialist. I help companies get the most out of their computing investments. I'm networking to see if you might know somebody interested in talking to me about how I can solve Windows network and IT security issues. Bam. And I'm gonna have that same message. I'm gonna send that to 300 people essentially. And then I'm gonna keep up with a list in a spreadsheet or wherever it is I wanna keep up with a list of it. And then, you know, in a few days, middle of next week, I'm gonna send out this message. And then after that, I'm gonna send out this message. So I'm not bugging them. This one's, you know, I'm still networking, looking for IT professionals who might be interested in talking with me. I don't wanna be bothered, so this will be my last message. So what I know is that if you put together this set of people and you execute this job search campaign, and we'll go into a lot of detail on this in the effective job search strategy, all I know is that you will, if you want more than one job offer, this is the way to go about doing it. Because what you'll do, especially if you're in career transition, if you're in career transition and you're waiting to apply for open jobs, chances are there's somebody in that 300 people who are applying for it who are better qualified and more experienced than you are. So you need to get ahead of the game, get to the front of the line before there ever is a line, by finding the recruiters and the hiring managers who are already thinking about hiring people who are like you. And you find them by identifying the people who are already in the roles that make sense for you and reaching out to them. And people want to say, well, I don't know if they're hiring. And the answer is, I don't know either. I mean, I don't know either. But what I can tell you is statistically 10 to 20% of them are. So, you know, there you go. It's the same thing that we do as headhunters. Somebody brought that up earlier. I have no idea whether the people I'm reaching out to are interested in a job. By the way, let's see if any of those people I kind of reached out to a while ago, those payroll people, connected with me. Not yet. It would be right here. Oh, maybe. No, it would be right here, but they will. And so the way we headhunt is reaching out to people and see who responds, right? Because those are the people who are interested. So all of this stuff is in this handout that that you have there, right? So what I can tell you is that if you do some of these things to search engine optimize your LinkedIn profile, the chances of somebody reaching out to you is so much higher. Multiple titles, zip code in the middle of the area you want to commute to, keywords that people are going to search for, right? Super, super critical. It's all right here. And then go build your network, connect with recruiters and hiring managers, send messages out to them, connect with as many as you possibly can. And while you're connecting with them, find the people who hired the people who are like you and start trying to network them. Get their email address and send it to them. If their LinkedIn profile, once they connect, doesn't have their email address, then send them a message through LinkedIn. And what you're trying to do is trying to create serendipity in their life, because there's somebody out there who wishes that they knew that you existed. And when you send them that email message, it's going to drop into their email box and they're going to go, whoa, I can't believe I just got out of a meeting talking to people about needing to hire somebody onto our help desk. And look at that, somebody just dropped into my lap. And that's because for each one of those individuals, they have no idea that you sent out 300 messages. For each one of them, they only got one from you. So yeah, that's how to do that. So I hope you've gotten a couple of nuggets out of this. I'm happy to answer some other questions. We're at the top of the hour. Sorry I brought it all the way to the top of the hour, but there we go. I hope there were some of these things in here that'll make a difference for you.
Thank you, Gary. Before we jump into questions, just a quick reminder that at New Horizons, we're working with you to achieve your employment objectives and hope that you will reach out to your New Horizons career consultant for further information. Once again, if you do not currently have a career consultant, you can log on to our website at newhorizons.com and do a zip code search to find the center that is nearest to you. Also, our webinar schedule is up today on our website. click on the webinars tab and see what's coming down the pike. I know Gary mentioned a few. He has a couple more until the end of the year, so please join us. And also, the friendly reminder, we'll be sending out the recording link later today for you to review today's webinar or to pass on to anyone that may have missed the session. So I know we're at the top of the hour, but a couple questions did come in, Gary.
Cool.
One is, how does the process work for 1099 contractors, freelancers, and things like that in terms of searching on LinkedIn for people to connect with?
Probably, I mean, exactly the same way. I don't think that, yeah, I don't think that that makes any difference whatsoever. I mean, all we're really talking about, by the way, my soapbox on that is that the only difference between a W-2 employee and a 1099 contractor is an agreement with the federal government as to who pays employment tax. Other than that, they're exactly the same thing. It's a group of people selecting an individual to come help them. So contract opportunities are exactly the same thing as W-2 opportunities for me. People want to say, well, it's more stable or whatever. It's like, no, it's not. I mean, no, it's not. I mean, it's just not. So I see so much of it. So they're kind of the same, right? It's just a matter of who's paying the employment tax. That's really the only difference.
Great. We mentioned, you talked about this a little bit in terms of listing positions. Instead of listing project manager as a position, since you said it was too generic, too vague,
Yeah, it's really
what would you suggest putting there?
Home construction project manager, software development project manager, logistics and shipping project manager. I mean, tell me what you project manage, because the thing about being a project manager, that's like getting a degree in math, right? I mean, well, what domain can you apply that to? So, you know, the tools and techniques around mathematics is really important, and the tools and techniques around project management are really important. But unless you have expertise in a particular domain that you're going to apply project management to, I kind of don't care. I mean, the opportunity to get hired as a generic project manager is you know, is one thing. The opportunity to get hired as a project manager of things in a particular domain, I mean, as an example, you would never hire an IT project manager to be a home construction project manager. I don't think that first home would go so well. Now, occasionally you'll find somebody who is, you know, changing industries or what have you, but just know that those transitions like that are always harder. So it's always about, you know, this type of project manager, then that's really helpful. And I am not suggesting that you can't get a project management certification and go get hired as a project manager into a domain that you don't know anything about. Thousands of people are having that experience today. I'm just saying that in general, if you have a history of project management, tell me what you project managed. It makes it so much better.
Great. And in terms of being on LinkedIn, is it important to post articles or comments and be active to improve your search results?
I haven't found that it removes you up in search results at all. I think that, you know, you might do it for other reasons, but if your objective is to come up higher in search results, then I don't think it helps you much on that. I think that you would, instead of doing that, you would be if your objective is strictly to go find a new job, then your time would be much better spent identifying recruiters and likely hiring managers and reaching out to them than it would be writing articles and things like that. If you have nothing else to do and you've exhausted your ability to reach out to people, sure, go write some articles or whatever, but I don't think it's going to help you come up in search results, nor is it going to help you connect with people. After they pay attention to you, they might care, but, you know, until somebody cares about you, then it doesn't matter.
Great. One of the questions that came in is, what happens when a well-known company, for example, PG&E, who get a huge amount of emails and connection requests, how do you suggest standing out in the application process? Do you think it's still too much to send, say, a card to the employer or adding any personal touches? Or is that still something that employers look for, or is that something of the past?
Yeah, so here's what I can tell you is that, you know, the recruiters who I know who work for really big companies, they get so much noise. Standing out in that noise is difficult, right? It's a whole lot easier to stand out when you're talking to somebody who gets a lot less incoming. So I think that the trick, if you're talking about trying to get into a very large company, isn't about So what's going to happen is if you send out messages to 100 people in small companies, then, if you're lucky, 10 or 15% of them will get back to you. So what you do is if you're trying to get into a big company, reach out to the same 100 people, but happen to be recruiters or hiring managers in a big company, your response rate's still going to be 10 or 15%. So it's always going to be a fraction of the number of people you reach out to, regardless of whether it's 100 people at 100 different companies or 100 people inside of the same company. Cutting through the noise is just that's kind of one of the things. The other thing I suggest to cut through the noise is to, reach out multiple times. And when you reach out the second time, make sure it's a reply to your original message. So it has the little RE. So, your whole message thread is there. And, if my first message is, hey, I'd like to talk. If my second message is, hey, I connected with you the other day, I'd still like to talk. And my third message is, hey, I'm not going to bug you anymore, but I'd still like to talk. Then sometimes what will happen is on that third message, somebody's just really busy. Sometimes I'll pick it up and say, hey, I've been meaning to get back to you, right? So yeah, I've kind of got that outlined in the notes there, but it's hard, but at some point it's a numbers game. And like I said, it doesn't matter to me whether it's 100 people inside of a large company or 100 people outside of a large company, your response rate is going to be low. So trying to get into a big one, just connect with more people and reach out to more people inside of that big one. Trying to get to any particular one is a little bit hard. If they're active Twitter user, try them there. Nobody reaches out to them on Twitter, right? Nobody reaches out to them in those other avenues. So, if they advertise their Twitter or their Instagram or whatever it is, try to go that route. At least you'll stand out.
Great. I know we're over our time, but thank you everyone again for joining us. We appreciate it. And thank you, as always, Gary, for presenting on these career development topics. That will conclude today's webinar. We'll hope to see you guys all on the next one, and you may now log off. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.